I'm working on building some shelves for the laundry room, just to hold the baskets and paint and some other random things we put in that room. And I saw a really good design on Woodgears.ca. Don't remember the guy's name offhand, but he always has a lot of interesting stuff. I think he goes a little bit overboard on a couple things, like his obsession with drywall screws for construction, and he also builds tool manifolds out of wood. Anyway, so the design is really simple. It involved more cuts for me than the way he was doing it, but that's because I obviously have a project in mind, and so I can't use the cuts from the mill. But essentially, what you would do is just cross this as a support, perpendicular, and then you would build up your shelving, like so. So these would be the panels across here. Now, some things I like about this, I really like 3/4 wood because it means I get to use my pneumatic stapler. So it should make this go really, really quickly. I did all these cuts in, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, something like that. I just finished these 4 sets of supports. So, like I was saying, the boards will go on top, across here. It will completely cover this one, but it will be 21 inches on the inside right here. So slightly further out on this shelf, the rest will be in slightly. Yeah, I could theoretically cut and work around this, but I don't really think it's necessary. I think it would also reduce the overall strength the more I think about this, because there just wouldn't be much support here on this tiny 3/4 ledge, so I'm not going to worry about it. Anyway, I have 4 sets here, and I tacked them with just 2 staples each, and the reason is because I eyeballed this in terms of the straightness of it and how perpendicular it was, etc. So what I'll end up doing is putting the shelves together and then giving it a few whacks with a rubber mallet with a level and checking on that, and then I'll do all the final fixing. So I'll probably end up doing, I guess I'll probably end up doing 4 staples per. That's usually what I do on 1x4. I finally have this very loosely constructed. It was mostly just time consuming due to ensuring alignments. I used drywall square just to check. Primarily I was concerned with this way, because if you have weight on something and it's skewed that dimension, it tends to fall over. It's very difficult to tell. Yeah, it's hard to tell just because the boards are a little funny, but I think it's pretty good this way. If anything, it's leaning that way, which is the best situation because that would make it fall towards the wall, if anything. But I think it'll be fine. The concept itself seems to have worked out nicely. I doubt I'm going to bother painting this or anything. I think I'm just going to tack it all together and then bring it into the house very carefully. I'll probably put some felt on the bottoms to prevent the floor scratching, that sort of thing. You know what they say, the best laid plans. So I didn't think about it, but it's too damn big to fit into the door. Yep. Not something I thought about. I mean, never really had a problem getting stuff through the hallway, but the door is the problem, and it's so painstakingly close. So I think what I'm going to do is cut this back about 2 inches, and cross my fingers it'll get through the freaking door. Cutting the 2 inches did the trick, and I have it's filled up with quite a bit of stuff. Got a little bit of space left, which is good. So this is filled up a little bit more. Wanted to just run over final dimensions.
I would estimate that this can hold at least 100, possibly over 200 pounds per shelf. Alright. So our final dimensions are 63 by about 58 and a quarter. I'll call it 58 by with the support to prevent torsion, we're looking at about 24 and 3/4. Otherwise, 24. One important thing, I designed this specifically for these laundry baskets, so it's 18 and a half. And you can see too much laundry. Need to get the wife to put her stuff away. Or take her fabric to the sewing area or something. Anyway, had a little bit of a mishap. Mental note, if you are buying ammonia from a dollar store or something, the container may just give up and start leaking ammonia. It's been, for God knows how long, 6 months or so, one of these containers was leaking ammonia into the floor. Thankfully, it didn't destroy the hardwood floor too much. That may be partially because that particular hardwood floor is old oak. Stuff is like twice as hard as oak you would get at the store. It's crazy old growth stuff. So didn't do any warping or bending or anything, just kind of put a black mark in that spot. Wanted to mention the price tag on this. Ended up being around $50 of lumber. Staple cost, I don't know, a couple bucks. So I'd call this around $50, including tax. So yeah, the equivalent shelf made out of steel that I was eyeing before with about the same dimensions was $360. I may end up doing some much larger versions of these for my workshop, just because I do like how it turned out. I'm kind of becoming more of a fan of wood because it is highly sustainable, and you know, if you take it out of the carbon cycle, if you cut down a tree so it's not absorbing carbon, it's also not going to emit it unless it starts decomposing. So in my mind, the more carbon storage you do by doing things in lumber, the better. So, you know, the trees these were cut from, I would guess, were between, I don't know, 20 and 50 years old, maybe even 15 years old. It's obviously some kind of crap yellow pine or something. So you might as well just build out of wood, in my opinion, and then just don't burn it or decompose it. And you know, in my mind, that's doing your part environmentally if you're worried about carbon. We put so much out into the air. So I'm going to use wood more often. The only thing that I kind of regret is that because this is all stapled, there's just nothing you can do to it. But at the same time, it's so inexpensive and it goes up so quickly. It's not so bad if you have to cut it in half or throw it in a burn pile or something along those lines. And it is all real wood, so if it gets wet, it has it's much more resilient than, say, pressboard or something like that, which expands and gets all funky. And as long as your gaps are pretty short, you know, the amount of strength that a single board can do, I don't even know. I'm sure a single one of these boards could hold 100 pounds just fine. And the compressive strength of even these 2x2s, I'm sure is extremely high on a 4x4, which is 3.5 by 3.5. It has something like a theoretical maximum of around 16,000 pounds of compressive strength. So, this way, vertical. Meaning that whatever this is, it's at least hundreds, if not 1,000 pounds of compressive strength vertically. Now, the mechanical fixation between these is a weak point, admittedly, but this has one really good design characteristic. So we have these staples here, which can work loose with vibration. However, these staples right here are holding them together. So even with a lot of vibration, this thing's going to just, stay in here because of these staples up on top. So in theory, I think this is extremely well built. The only other annoying thing is you're dealing with 3/4, and so it was kind of a pain to hit the mark every single time. You can see I have a few misses right there and there, for example, or quite a few over here. I don't think the camera's picking that up, but even so, it's not even a penny a staple, I don't think, and I'm pretty used to missing with the stapler. It's just kind of one of the things about using it. Staple construction, the important part is that you don't just say, oh, I stapled, it's good, because if you miss, even if you miss just one leg, your strength is half. When they were doing assessments of hurricane damage in houses that collapsed in Florida, they basically found out, hey, a lot of the time all 2 of the posts of the staple were not actually going through, and that was a serious problem. If you're just some builder and you're just lazily bam 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 doing that a whole bunch of times, then, and if you make a bunch of misses, then your strength just isn't there. It's the casualness of stapling that is the reason for collapses and things like that. It's a good fixative option, but you can't be too lazy. So what I do is I hold my hand nearby, do a staple, feel, go on. So as I'm working, I note any staples I miss, and then I just cha-chink another one in. So that's how I deal with the situation personally. Anyway, this was a fun little project, and I'll probably scale it up for some shelves in my workshop.